Hey guys, thanks for clicking on the video. If you did, then you know that today we're going to be doing a review on the oar board. Now this is new ground for me in about every possible way. So I've never really done a video review before. I have never been on a stand-up paddle board before. I have never tried scull rowing on the open water. As a matter of fact, the only rowing I've done has been on a John boat, kind of just navigating some shoals on a river, doing some fishing. I haven't even spent probably less than 15 minutes in a kayak in my life, okay? I need to give you a little bit of background. Where's this coming from? I purchased an Aviron rowing machine for my home gym about 4 months ago. It's something that I've started to enjoy. It's something that I'm doing probably 3 to 5 days a week. It has greatly increased the amount of cardio that I do. It has helped my fitness a great deal. I'm getting older. I'm in my 40s now. Not able to do, or I don't have the opportunity to do the physical labor, the amount that I did years ago, and I just have to pick that up somewhere to try to keep myself in shape, to a certain degree of shape anyway. So that was the thought process behind it. I enjoyed it. We've got lake property, and I thought, man, it would be really cool if I could move this workout when time and opportunity presents itself outside to be able to do that kind of thing. So looking at what my options were, what options are out there to row with, and other than a shell, a sculling shell of some kind that you could race with, which is not something that I'm interested in looking for. The next best options that I was able to find was a stand-up paddleboard with a rowing mechanism attached, a sculling rowing mechanism attached. Trying to do research on those, looking at Google. The three that pop up, the three big ones, were the Row SUP. Seemed like a pretty good system. Didn't necessarily look like their website had been updated in a while, so kind of just puts me in a little different direction. The next one that I saw was the Row On Air, which was really nice. Looked like probably the most high end of the systems that I saw out there. There were several different board options that they offered. There was even an inflatable kayak option that you could maybe haul a person or some gear, maybe a little bit easier than you could on a board itself was an option. They even have, rather than just the conventional sculling motion where you're paddling and the motion of the boat is this direction, so you're having to kind of look over your shoulder to see where you're going, possibly have a reverse facing mirror in front of you, you can see what's behind you, or just make sure you're in the open water so you don't run into anything. They had a mechanism, and I can't remember what it was called, but as you row, it reverses the directions that the oars are going in. It even allows you to feather the oars, but the boat would move forward. So you're actually moving the direction you're facing, which to someone that's never been on the water and done that kind of thing, that seemed pretty awesome, right? That seemed like something I would love to have. But looking at the numbers, it wasn't twice the price of the oar board what we're talking about today, but it wasn't too far from it either. So kind of what I settled on was middle of the road, company called Oarboard. The model that I purchased was the Adventure 13.4, and we're going to try it out. So I've just taken the bags out of the cardboard boxes. We're going to open those up. We're going to see what's inside. I'm going to try to break down the steps to assemble this thing properly, I hope, and then we're going to get on the water and see what happens from the perspective of someone that's never sculled the first stroke in his life. I'm going to try to figure out how the mechanism works, and we'll go from there, see what happens. So I just want to do this for the newbies out there, the guys that just think that it might be a cool thing to try, but I wasn't able to find a review from this perspective. I wasn't able to find a review from someone that wasn't a company spokesperson. And this is what I was looking for. So if I can't find it, then let's create it. Okay, let's go through the process together, and we'll see what happens. All right, so the system showed up in 2 cardboard boxes. I've literally just taken the bags out. This is kind of what you've got. These are the travel bags that you can pack everything up in if you want to throw in the back of the car, back of a truck, to be able to go somewhere. I think what we're going to find are the oars, and the rowing mechanism itself is going to be in the longer of the 2 bags, and then the board the pump, the things to inflate it are going to be in the smaller bag. So let's open them up, confirm that, and see what's inside. So this is the contents of the long bag. We have the port and starboard oars themselves, owner's manual, the collars for the oars. Those are actually located in the end of this long pouch here. I don't know the proper terminology for this, so we're going to call this the platform, the carriage itself that slides back and forth. We've got the footrest, the seat. These are the straps that will attach this mechanism to the board itself. The outriggers that will go on the sides that will where our oars will attach. And then I got the optional rear-facing mirror and the fishing rod holder that will mount up front using these mounts that you see here will mount up front on the unit itself. So I'm going to dive into the owner's manual a little bit, see what the process is. I think I will be unrolling the board itself and starting inflation next. We'll go from there. So this is the contents of the smaller of the two bags. Now this bag does have backpack straps on the back side of it, so you'll be able to carry this one on your back. You'll be able to drag or lift and carry this one to the water if you're needing to pack it up and pack it in wherever you're trying to row itself. The board itself is in there, the pump with the hose attachment. This unit came with two fins that go on the bottom. This is a hard fin if you don't have any issues, sandy bottom or with a rocky bottom or a shallow water to start off with. If you don't have a sandy bottom, you're going to be in rocks, or you're just not dealing with much water to launch, then this is a flexible fin that can go and replace this one on the board itself. A couple more straps. I'm not sure what those are for because I've already got two straps. We'll figure that out. It looks like a repair kit if you puncture the board. It came with this little waterproof bag to be able to hold your cell phone. Looks like it has a lanyard and maybe some type of strap, calf strap, arm strap, something like that will go through the back of this unit to be able to hold your phone if you need that, and a leash, I would imagine, if you're using this as a paddleboard without the rower attached. So we're going to unroll this dude and start pumping it up. All right, a couple things to note on the pump itself. There is an inflate side, there is a deflate side. We've got a gauge in the top to make sure that we get the correct pressure. And then there's a valve, a red valve here on the top that it's calls the switch valve. In the closed position, it's high capacity, so it's double action. You pump up and pump down, you're putting air into the unit itself. Once you get it closer to pressure, then you'll take that to the open position, and it's a high pressure single action. Won't put as much air in, but it will do it under higher pressure. So let's start getting some air and see what happens. Something else that I think we need to note, and I just remember some other folks talking about this. This valve, I think, is when it's in a down position and turned, it's kind of locked there. So you can, if it's in this position and you click this dude on, it's either not going to take air, or as soon as you take it off, it's going to come back off. I don't remember. But what I do remember is this needs to be turned and make sure that it's popped up in this upward position before you clip on and start pumping in, and everything will go on. The hose itself literally just screws to this, and then this has a locking lug of some kind that goes over. Kind of see the two tabs down there that locks on. It goes down and locks into place. Let's pump and see what happens. That sucked. Definitely a workout. I understand why the folks have the inflators, that's for sure. But it says recommended inflation max is 15 psi. That's what we have it on the pump itself. I probably had it up to 6 or 7 psi before I switched over to the high pressure mechanism, which means I simply pulled the plug out here. It's only pumping on the downstroke, and it's a little bit easier to build pressure doing that. So I don't know what the time was on that. We'll go back and calculate, but that was pumping pretty steady. Quite a bit of work. All right, so we just got this sucker aired up, and we finally got enough shade down at the dock that I could actually move everything down here. The board itself is super light. I don't know, I probably carried it 250, 300 feet, no big deal at all. There's a handle in the middle that makes it easy just to flip up and carry the board itself, no problem. We're gonna go ahead and put the fin on now, and I'm gonna orient it where it hangs off the back of the dock so we don't damage this in any kind. I'm gonna be launching from the dock itself, so water's deep enough we should have to worry about any kind of rocky bottom or damaging this, so I'm gonna go with the hard fin. I don't know how well you guys can see this, but there's kind of a notch of some kind, a nipple I'm going to call it, here and here, and it's going to slide in this rail. So the front one is going to go slide on the rail right here, and it's going to slide back until this back one falls in this open notch where the arrows are. It's going to fall in those notch, and then the whole thing's going to push back, and that's going to lock it in place. Here's just a look from the bottom side of the board. Got it flipped over and just put the fin on. And then the top side of the board, I've just got the fin hanging off the back so I don't damage it while I put the rowing mechanism on. Not sure where it's going to attach yet on the quick connect tabs there on the side. We'll have to figure that out, make sure I don't end up putting my foot in the wrong place and end up off the dock, but that's how she looks on top. All right, so I've got the base and the carriage itself, which comes assembled. And I went ahead and set it on the board. And I don't know exactly if this is going to be the location that's going to stay, so I don't have anything strapped down yet. But from this point, we're going to go ahead and attach the seat, and then we're going to get the footrest in place. So the seat just has a single wing nut on the bottom that unscrews. Now, the video that I saw said that this can only go on one way, but I can get it to go that way. And I can get it to go that way. Now you got to remember, this is going to be the front of the board. Your back is going to be to the front of the board, so you wouldn't want the curve of this seat. You don't want your butt to be sitting here. This would be very uncomfortable. So just make sure that the seat's positioned so that it turns around the flat part, and then you've got kind of curvature for your butt itself to fit against that on the back side, and then this wing nut screws back onto place on the post from the bottom side. From this point, we'll put the footrest in place. This carriage that moves back and forth, there's 3 slots that are on an angle that are on both sides. So the footboard has edge on both sides that slides in the slots. Now I don't know which one's going to work out best for me, so we'll start with the middle slot. We line both ends up. It slides down into place. There's kind of a bottom to this foot peg, like where your heel would sit against, so just make sure that's facing down towards the bottom. And then these pins come over, and there's holes in the side that correspond, that lock the footrest into place. So next up is our strut assembly. The struts themselves come in 2 separate pieces. They have 3 wing nuts and bolts on each end. So the directions, they want you to go ahead and take all the wing nuts off both pieces to begin with, kind of set them aside for just a second. Just as a side note, one of these bolts can come in and out without the wing nut on it. So be careful if you're doing this over water or somewhere that you could drop it and lose it. But it says to take all the wing nuts off to begin with.
Okay, so the way they explain things is there isn't really there's no difference in sides. It doesn't matter, but the two ends need to come together. There's a little plastic piece that makes those two slide together. They lock, and then this will come over, and there's 4 holes on the carriage itself right here that need to line up for these bolts to go through. Looks like it could be a little tricky. Just got to make sure everything lines up. Take your time. You can work both those pieces individually, but they will lock through. It's going to look something like that. Here's the 4 bolts that slide through, and then up here on the other end, these will drop inside. That hole on the carriage. Same thing over here. If you can see that, I'm trying to hold this with one hand and do it with the other. I'll go to that side. Now, for some reason, you have to have a flathead screwdriver to hold this in place while you tighten on the wing nuts on the front. Looks like that would have been something they could overcome, but they didn't. So let's do that. Slide the carriage back forward to make it a little bit easier to get access to this end. Hold the top end with the flathead and tighten the wing nut on each side. Some of the videos I saw mentioned using a coin to hold that flat slot in place. It doesn't really matter. You have to get creative if you have to, right? But you should be able to come up with something to hold that down if you forget a flathead at home. And I'm going to put the 4 wing nuts on the bolts that slide through the carriage and get those snugged down. Now, as I've tightened these, I can notice that this bar, the outrigger, the strut itself has pulled in tighter. So the first one wing nut that I tightened down that felt like was pretty snug, I can actually see, I don't know, maybe a 1/16 inch of space between. So go back and kind of re-snug these all and make sure that they're all fairly tight. Oar assembly. So we've got 2 halves. We've got 2 of them marked red, 2 marked green. So the red side is going to be, the red color is going to be your port side, and the green is going to be your starboard. They snap together extremely easily, but before we do that, we need to put the collars on. I just think it'll be easier than having the long full section to try to deal with that. So it comes with the 2 collars, and these collars have notches that are cut out inside of them that correspond to this heavy blue section that's on the top portion of the oar itself. And it's numbered through here 1 to 18. So from what I understand is the farther you are up this scale, the higher the number, the more overlap you get with the oars, which is something that you gain from experience. So if you don't want to constantly be cracking knuckles, I think that we need to stay down on the lower number. So you got to have the screwdriver again. There's a simple hose clamp on here that needs to loosen to give it a little bit of play. It'll slide over the end of the oar, and then there is really only one way it can go on, but there's a wide notch that will correspond with, and I'm going to slide it down until we're on 3, and we're going to try it there. Slide down to 3 and then tighten this down. And I'm going to slap both halves together. So there's a couple of push buttons on this that corresponds to the other end. I don't think that you can possibly do this wrong in any way. One, then the other, and it snaps together, and you've got a fully assembled oar. Okay, so before we attach the oars to the oar locks themselves, we need to go ahead and get the base secured to the board. So first time I put it together, right, I have no idea where I need to be as far as relation, and it looks like there's quite a bit of play as to where this carriage can move forwards or backwards to strap in. Just looking at the board itself, I'm thinking I probably want my butt, the majority of the weight, centered on the board. So I'm gonna go with this strap. Might possibly get it in the water and decide that I need to move it up on, but this is going to be the location that I'm going to strap it in to begin with. So if you remember there, when I unboxed, there was 2 sets of straps that looked identical, but they're not identical. One of the sets is a little bit larger than this one, and the extra length is what you use if you have your own board that you're attaching it to, because the strap will go all the way around the board on the underside. If you use the Orbor board, then you've got these locks, these D rings on the side that you'll actually use the shorter strap to lock into. So this simply comes off, strap itself unwinds. The strap needs to lock back on itself. So I don't know if you see what I'm doing here. Back on itself. This will lay kind of in the center position. So to begin with, we're going to go through. This will sit here, and then we want this strap to hook, but it has to go back underneath this buckle. So we're going to go over top this side. And then we're going to go back under this strap and under the buckle and exit the other side. Then it's going to go under this D-ring, and that will allow us to go back through again, and we get back to our buckle. Now the hard thing to, or the important thing to notice on the buckle is you kind of see 2 tabs right here. This needs to go behind the farthest tab and then back through that middle slot. We do something like this, hand tight, and then this cams over and locks in place. All right, same thing on the front strap. It's the board's a little narrower here, so we might have more material left over. Make sure you're using the 2 short straps to make this happen. Regardless, the buckle needs to come back on the material like we did on the other strap. You go through. It's going to go over this one so we can come back under everything. It won't interfere with any of the mechanism. Through this side, I'm going to go under this one because now I want to go back over. Remember, I need to go through the back tab first, then through the middle between those 2. Position that buckle on the back side. Pull this through so I can get a good hand tight pull, and it cams over. This extra material, I'm going to take this and kind of roll it a little bit. And then I'm going to take the band itself and kind of double this over like you would a rubber band to keep it out of the way while we're rowing. All right, I'm starting to lose daylight here, so it's going to be assembly one day and on the water the next. This shooting video and trying to get all this put together takes way more time than I ever imagined. So one of the most confusing things for me, especially being a newbie, not being around boats, I don't understand the way all this works. I'm just even to the point where I'm trying to remember which side is port and which side is starboard. We've got 2 different color-coded oars to use. So if I understand things correctly, this is the front of the board where it's pointy, the back of the board where it's flat in, right? So front of the board this way, the port is on the left-hand side. I'm left-handed. I like to drink port. There's red bands on there, which is my favorite color, right? So the red is going to go on the left-hand side if you're facing the front of the board. So this is the oar lock that it goes into. This thing can swing 360 degrees around. From what I understand, if you're outside, the majority of this oar lock is over the end of the strut, that's not correct. It needs to be inside, where the majority of it is all on the inside of the strut. So there's a wing nut here, or a knob that loosens on a bolt, and it opens the oar lock. I can take the oar itself, drop it in, this comes back over, tightens down to hold it in place. Same thing for the other side. Doesn't need to be over the outside, majority over it needs to be over the strut. This loosens, swings open, oar drops into place. And that tightens down. So let's see if it makes sense. First time I've ever even sat on this thing. Let's see. Into the oar lock, slides forward, into the oar lock. Let's see. Okay, that makes sense. You see that? So the majority of the paddle is facing down on both ends. So I'm just going to do it with my hands right now. That would be scooping water, grabbing water. And then we go down, feather. I don't even know which way you feather. So you feather, back, down, drop in the water, pull it in. So you can see the orientation of the oars, how we're grabbing, pull the water, trying to incorporate some legs. Gonna be a learning curve, but it's very smooth. Oh, very cool. I can't wait to get on the water. It's gonna be fun. All right, so before it gets completely dark, I wanted to show one of the attachments. So this is one of the end stops that goes up here. There's actually a room for 3. So this stop in the middle is simply to keep this carriage from being able to slide completely off the front. But if you wanted to have 3 separate attachments, there's room for 3 of these things at the front. I've got 2. I've got one for a fishing rod holder, which probably won't go on there very often, but it'll be there if I need it to. And the mirror, which I think I'll probably be using a lot, at least to begin with, because I'm afraid I'm going to run into something if I don't know where I'm going. So it has a wing nut that's on this post that will unscrew and drop in the lake if you're not careful. There's a push button that's on this, and this push button is what allows this to, when this goes in, the post goes in, it'll unlock and allow it to slide back out. So I think that that points down towards the bottom of the board. That's what makes sense with what I'm seeing here. This locks in where it can't move any direction. It's a little notch that it fits in, and then the wing nut tightens down. And then this, which is actually 2 separate pieces. So this is how it comes. And this piece will set. And here there's notches and notches that will align. So that would line itself up and it locks into place. If I press this button on the bottom side in, it allows it to come back out. But if not, it locks into place. And then the mirror itself will lock into that. I'll turn this collar until it allows those tabs to lock back in, and then that's in place. And then of course you can orient the mirror, you can change the angle of all this stuff to get everything right, but it gives you some kind of idea of how it attaches to the boat. Same thing for the fishing rod holder on the other side. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. It definitely is going to be a part 1 of 2. We'll do the unboxing and assembly in one video, and then do the review on the water review and a mine experience in part 2. One thing that I didn't mention, and I honestly didn't even realize it until I got home and started to look back over the video, but when I unboxed the bag that had the platform and the oars and those kind of things in there, what wasn't in there was a stand-up paddle if you're going to use the board as a stand-up paddle board. It just wasn't included, period. So
went on the Orboard website to see how I needed to communicate with customer service. And while I was there was something that popped up in the bottom corner. It's been there every time that I visited the site, and it was wanting to start a chat. And it was actually, it says it was a chat with Diana, which is, I think, the president of Orboard. So I did that. It was 9:45 on a Friday night Eastern time, and 2 minutes later, somebody that identified themselves was Diana was on there asking, you know, what I needed help with, and I told her the situation. She asked for an order number that went along with my order, asked a couple of things about some stickers maybe that were in there, and I think that helps them identify probably the steps of packaging to make sure this happened and this happened, this happened. And from those two pieces of information that she was able to gather that didn't have the paddle that I should have had. So that was on a Friday. I received the paddle the next Friday. She told me that night immediately, we'll take care of it first thing Monday. I apologized. So I thought that was really cool, fast on the customer service side of things. So I hope that you enjoyed the video. I know that it's been way longer than I wanted it to be, but I wanted to give a little bit of my story and what I was looking for in the board itself to kind of to go along with the unboxing. So see you guys on part 2.